I have put together a boot disk for the AO486 core for the MiSTer. So this is the latest core. And this is the released core, so it has all kinds of features. It actually seems to have 100 megahertz as well now. It was missing in the first release, but then it was updated so that you also get the option to disable cache levels, and you can change the speed. And there are some settings for the audio and video. The colors, if the colors looks very strange, that's probably the setting or this. And the low res here can set itself to 4 times the size. It's to help with VGA output. And VSync seems to work best if it's variable, at least with VGA monitors. But to show the boot disk, this default startup has 613 conventional memory free, and it uses EMS memory and XMS memory. And it's a pretty simple boot disk. I just took the FreeDOS disk that was meant to be used to install FreeDOS, and I trimmed it a bit so that it only has these bin files that are for different languages, and for copying different files it can do some compressing with zip. It has the memory utility, LBA cache, which is active, and some other useful commands. Stuff like fdisk and format is also there. But then I found this Volkov Commander utility that I'm inside now, and it's quite useful because it's only 200 kilobyte, which makes it possible to have it on a disk. So yeah, 190 kilobyte, and it's useful for just browsing the disk. But then I also included some extra utilities. There's an add path batch file, which simply takes whatever folder you're in and adds it to the path. The path is folders that are always accessible no matter where you are on the hard disks. So that's why, for example, if I go to drive D, I can try VC and it still launches Volkov Commander. And another utility I added is mount, which is also a batch file, but it helps mount ISO files in DOS. It does this by using the utilities here for emulating CD drives. The utility itself is called shsudx.com, and it's part of the FreeDOS package. So what the command does, well, first I think I'll show, I also included fpath because that helps path. So I think first I'll show what does it actually do here. So it sets fpath, and fpath looks at the file in a certain folder and then finds the location of that file, the path to it, and then I take this path variable and add it to the path here, and it adds it after whatever path you have. The path works so that you could put path in front of it. So, for example, path P, here. And the order of the path is relevant because whatever comes first on this list is what is prioritized. So it starts looking in the first folder and see, do you have any command called VC? And then the order is also that it looks first for COM files, COM files, and then exe files, and then batch files. So if there's a COM file, it will launch the COM file. And then it looks in the next, which might be, let's not save this. And then it looks for the next one, which might be this folder, and see if it has a VC command. And eventually it will come to this, which has a vc.com command, and launch Volkov Commander. It does lack some utilities, like I can control Q to show the size of a folder. I'm not sure if it can show the size of a folder. But it can do the simple stuff like copying files and deleting directories. Oh wait, there's a dear size there. It's just not very effective, it seems. It might even have crashed. That's not very good. Oh, you can just escape. That's nice. Yeah, I know this is about 5 megabyte. No, that takes too long. We can try to compare it to Norton Commander. But here I can make an example. So if I just type out path, now Norton Commander, the folder here is added to the path, and I can run Norton Commander from anywhere. And it has the nice control Q feature to show the size of the folder you're looking at. But you can also no, yeah, it is control Q you need to press to do that. But yes, then there's the mount utility, and the command, the batch file I made for this is this, so it echoes off to not show a lot of output, and then it unmounts or uninstalls these utilities. So it removes the CD-ROM drive, and first it removes the image that's mounted, and then it removes the CD-ROM drive itself as well. And then it %1 when you run a batch file is always whatever is after, so that it's the first parameter it can find. It adds to this, and then it mounts the drive itself, so that it becomes a device and takes the first available device letter. In this case we have drive A, C and D. So if we mount something, it should become drive E. So we can take Blood and Magic for example, mount B, and it has mounted Blood and Magic. So now we have it here. Or we can take time gate. Oh, and yeah, I can click T and press tab. Oh, and it gives an error because there's too many files, so I can click TI and press tab, and it will show the rest of the file name. And yeah, so first it removes the drive that was previously connected, and then it mounts the new one. Otherwise it might just create a new drive instead, and you would end up having a lot of different drives. So now time given it's mounted, and yeah, I find that this works quite well. I tried making it into a command that could be launched from inside, but Norton Commander and Volkov Commander, Star Commander, and all of these utilities, they seem to have the problem with whatever you launch while inside them might not work. So, for example, I can try add path here, but it doesn't work. Is there a way to test it? Let's see. Yeah, at least. Well, you can't be guaranteed that it'll work if you do it like that. So, more useful utilities here. CT mouse. That's why the mouse is working, which is part of the FreeDOS package, but I didn't think I could find it here. There might be some other mouse utilities, but yeah, I know this one works, so I just included that here. But also I included soft MPU and DOS32A. DOS32A is a DOS extender, advanced DOS extender, and it's quite effective. It's like the utility called DOS4GW that many games use to add protected memory. And it can help make a lot of games run. Oh yeah, FPath also has some documentation, and soft MPU has some documentation. Well, this README seems to require a Windows document reader. MoSlow is for slowing down games. I don't think we need that since we can already slow down MiSTer to 15 Hz, so that should be fine. The reason these Casio options are added is because it seems some compatibility works better if you disable these. Also, it might actually make it faster to disable level 1 cache and just have level 2 cache for some things. At least the benchmarks sometimes improve because of it. But yeah, soft MPU is for meaty stuff, and I think it requires you to have some hardware that can take advantage of this, that has to be connected to the MiSTer. I'm not sure what sysctl does, but it was added in the MiSTer drivers folder. But DOS32A, it's not the full utility. I think I have it here. So these are all the files for DOS32A. But I have so far only used DOS32A itself, which is much smaller than including all the files, because some of these are pretty big. Oh yeah, and MiSTerFS I included, which was actually why I began making this disk, because people would like to have MiSTerFS on a disk so that it would be easy to use and access without having to put it on a VHD first. But yes, I want to show some examples of DOS32A working. So here we have Warcraft 2. Yeah, and now it just launches with DOS4GW, and it has these errors. So to solve that, we can type DOS32A War2, and here it looks for the exe file called War2. So we could add this, but it should find it correctly. And if Warcraft 2 is an exe file without one that does not use DOS4GW, it would complain about that. So yeah, now the game launches, and oh, this is a version that requires a CD. Let's Here we have a demo instead. I don't have the easy for Warcraft 2 right now, so and it does lag a bit when we boot the game, but when we are in the game it runs quite well. Or maybe we have run too many different things for it. Let's see. We better reboot just to be sure. It should launch faster than that. Oh yeah, that's another thing. We have boot choices. Because different games might require different configurations. So we have an emergency mode that loads a minimum of things. A safe mode that only loads some drivers and no high memory. And then you have expanded memory, which should be the most compatible and support the most games. And then we have no EMS and most UMBs, max RAM free. And I found a way to set this up so that it would support MiSTerFS. Let's just finish showing Warcraft. So we have the mouse pointer. We're gonna replay introduction, which is just the Blizzard logo in this demo. Maybe I have a save game? No.
Due to your position as regional commander of the Southern Defense Force,
and we're in the game.
By your command.
Troops around.
Yes, my lord.
And the sound is working. I previously tried to use a utility called HX Extender to help run Warcraft, but then the sound didn't work. Another game that makes use of .32a is Descent, and also Strife actually. At least it seems more stable when I run it with .32a. So if we take Descent, wait, yeah, I have to show something here as well, because this version of Descent actually has a batch file for running it, and normally it just have this. So there's no .32a there. And it will complain just like Warcraft 2 did. And we could just run Descent RX with .32a directly, but it's neater this way, I think. I'm not sure why there's a PC speaker sound whenever it has more than one. And this game is actually, it has the spec requirements that the AO486 has, which is a 486 with 33 megahertz, so it runs at full speed. But if you try to change it to run in higher settings with the setup, you can set it to run super VGA settings, and then it will run too slowly. And we'll just skip this. And and it runs. And now I'm controlling with the mouse, and I'm flying with A. So yeah, that runs great. But now to show you how I set up the disk itself. Well, against the MiSTerFS feature is also pretty important. I think I'll show that first, and then I'll show how I got it to work. So we type MiSTerFS. So it's the MiSTer file system, I think, or file sharing. And it's important that the AO486 folder on the USB or SD card that you use does not have a folder called shared when you first run it. Because when you then run this, it will create that folder and maybe do something more. I'm not sure where it stores its settings. But I'm guessing it's on the SD card somewhere. So we type this, and it will complain about not having any settings. Quiet mode just doesn't show any status, but I like it to zero that. And then the letter we type here is going to be the drive letter. I'll choose F this time because I think we used all the other letters, or I like to have the CD-ROM as drive E. And now it works. You can go around. You can even run this game from it. And the important settings to make it work are I have in here. So this is the one we're running now, and this is how it's normally configured actually. Before I changed anything with the FreeDOS setup. And then I added this, which excludes this memory area. And I did the same for C menu 1. Oh yeah, this is how the menu system here works. If you choose 1, it will run all the lines here that has one on the line. So this one won't be run if you are running the first option, but the second and third and fourth option will run this. The second option will be the only one that uses this line. And yeah, here we exclude a bit more precisely. So it frees up some more UMBs, and I'm not sure exactly what UMBs are, but games use them, I guess. Because we only need to free from CE00 to CFF, and it might actually be enough to take C7FF, but I haven't tested that. But that might be a way to optimize it a bit further. Yeah, by doing that. So we could down here as well take CE, and that will be a bit more efficient, I guess. But let's keep it this way. The problems you get if you don't have these free is that you can't mount it correctly. Either it will fail to run already at this point, running MiSTer D or MiSTerF, or you get the drive added and it shows this line with MiSTerFS version 1.0 and installed as something, but then when you do this, it will freeze and not do anything else, because it's then trying to access these memory areas that should have been excluded from the memory manager. So yeah, this is a folder on the USB in my case, but it could also be on the SD card. I think it prioritizes the USB stick if you have one. So it'll take the first USB stick and look for an AO486 folder on it. First in the root, I guess, and then in the games folder. And the files in this folder have to comply with the naming standard for DOS, which is a name of 8 characters or less, and an extension that is 3 characters or less. So like ISO files, for example. And that's a nice way to share things with your MiSTer, because then you can copy files to the MiSTer and from it, and get files from it. It is very slow though to copy files on the MiSTer itself. Even a megabyte takes about a minute to copy. So yes, that's how that works. And the setups with the exclusions and so on. So this is a disk-sized boot disk that actually has all the commands you would need. Oh, and I think there is another thing I would want to show. So if I take this empty VHD, and we have to reset and apply HDD to make sure it applies them. And then I can show FDisk and how to use that. So we want to activate FAT32. We could disable it and have just a FAT disk instead, but yeah, now we can see the active disk right now is disk C. But we want to use this with the second disk, which is drive D right now. And we can see it has a FAT32 partition, and it has 2048 megabytes, so it's a 2 gigabyte VHD. So we can delete that partition. So now it's gone. And this is how a clean VHD would start out. So we can look at it and it'll say it has the space, but there's no partitions. So we can create a partition. And you can actually create more than one partition per VHD. But yeah, it asks if you want to use all the space. And if you want to make more than one partition, you shouldn't use all the space. But we'll do it with all the space. And it has created the partition. And it's using FAT32 because that's what we allowed it to earlier. And then we can also set it to active. This is possible because it's the FreeDOS version of FDisk. The Windows versions will complain that if it's not the first disk on the system and you try to make it active. So now we can see that it's FAT32, and then it says you have to restart, and that's probably true, so I'll use Ctrl-Alt-Delete and restart. Pick the first option as usual, and now I can type D, but I can't show the directory because it's not formatted yet. So we'll abort. We have to abort a few times for some reason, and then use format D. And this also triggers this error. I'm not sure why, but just click ignore. More than once, I guess. Fail, retry. That's strange. Let's try from C. And then we have to type yes with large letters, capital letters, and then we can call it empty. And it will format the whole disk. I think there's actually also a fast version that will format it faster. But I want to show a second way of formatting. Oh wait, let's try this, so we can see all the options. And what we want to do is S makes it a bootable disk, and and Q for doing a quick format. So D, Q, S, much faster. Saving on format from information. I guess that's in case you want to cancel formatting the disk. But there might be an option that will skip this part. But here we go. Oh. Yeah, I'll just pause it a bit. This takes a bit. So I guess the fast method or the quick format is not that quick anyway. On a normal computer it's much faster, even though it's several gigabytes in size. So let's see what we have created. Oh yeah, it's D drive D. So now it's the most simple possible disk. It just has the command file and the sys file, and we can actually take this VHD, which is the empty VHD, and backspace here to remove an image, and we'll put the FreeDOS one here and reset. And yeah, this is the default when you boot FreeDOS. It will ask for the time and such. And there are some built-in commands in command.com, so you can still write directory and cd stuff and go to drive D, for example. See that it has not many things. So I also have Volkov Commander here. And floppy disks you can mount and unmount while you're using it, so we can just go and go into floppies, and right now it's this one that I set up. And then we have all the stuff on this. But it doesn't have all the setup stuff that I have set up for this, like set the command, the auto exist bat and the config to have better memory performance or utility. And here we also see the path I set up that adds oh wait, yeah, I don't even have, let's just boot from the disk. That's strange. Boot order floppy, boot order HDD. Maybe I have to reset like this to get it to, yeah, now it boots from the floppy disk. I guess if you mount the floppy disk and reboot it, it forgets that you mounted the floppy disk and doesn't see it as a boot drive. But yeah, these this path line is why it has utils and bin and what Volkov Commander already added to the path, and why we can use the batch scripts like mount and so on. A lot of the stuff has been uncommented because just to make it more efficient. This one is support for DOS long file names. I'm not sure what it really does, but it might be possible to actually copy files with long file names, even though you can't read them in DOS. And then it ends up just showing the memory available. And I've stopped it from trying to add a CD drive, since we don't have a hardware CD drive or an FPGA CD drive, so that it's ready to just mount stuff instead. But yeah, that's how you set up your own system disk, and then you might want to copy FDOS to it and set up your own config files, and you can continue putting games on it and so on. Yes, that's all for now. I hope you liked the video. If you have some questions, you can ask in the comments, and I'll link the floppy disk image in the description of the video. Have fun. Bye again.